I never thought I'd be the guy who got cheated on with the vegetable supplier. But life has a way of serving up the most absurd combinations when you least expect it, especially when you run a restaurant. You know what's worse than catching your wife cheating? Catching her in the walk-in cooler of the restaurant you built together, pressed against the shelves of produce he delivered that morning. The same produce I'd spent hours inventorying, the same cooler I'd repaired twice last month because she said we couldn't afford a professional. Let me back up. My name is Daniel Winters. 6 months ago, I was the proud co-owner of Herb Vine, a farm-to-table restaurant in Portland that my wife Claire and I had poured our entire lives into. 3 years of savings, second mortgages, maxed out credit cards, and countless sleepless nights. Our dream. Or so I thought. The restaurant business is brutal even when everything goes right. The statistics aren't encouraging. Something like 60% fail within the first year, and 80% don't make it to their 5th anniversary. But Claire and I, we were different. We had to be. We'd met in culinary school 12 years ago, fell in love over blanched asparagus and perfectly executed béarnaise sauce. She was brilliant with flavors. I was good with numbers and management. The perfect team. "We're going to beat those odds, Danny," she'd say, her eyes lighting up when we'd finally signed the lease on that brick-walled space downtown. "We're not just another statistic." I believed her. God, I believed everything. We opened Herb Vine with a clear vision. Locally sourced ingredients, seasonal menu, intimate atmosphere. Claire handled the kitchen. I managed the front of house and finances. The first few months were exactly what you'd expect: complete chaos, crushing debt, and more work than two people should humanly endure. But we were making it. Slowly, painfully, we were building something. The reviews started coming in. Good ones. The Portland Weekly called Claire's roasted beet and goat cheese salad a revelation. Reservations became harder to get. We hired staff, good people who believed in what we were creating. By month 4, we were actually turning a small profit. Microscopic, but still profit. That's when Jason entered the picture. Jason Reeves, owner of Green Valley Organics, a small local farm about 40 minutes outside the city. He'd shown up one Tuesday morning in his mud-splattered pickup truck, sample crates of the most beautiful produce I'd ever seen. "Heard you folks are looking for the good stuff," he'd said, leaning against the delivery entrance, all 6 foot something of him, with those weathered hands and that easy smile farmers seem to have. "Thought I'd introduce myself." Claire was immediately taken with his vegetables, and as I'd learned later, with a lot more than that. We signed a contract with Green Valley that same week. The quality was undeniable, and though his prices were higher than our previous supplier, our customers could taste the difference. Claire created new dishes around his heirloom tomatoes and watermelon radishes. Business improved further. Jason started making the deliveries himself, always Tuesday and Friday mornings, always spending a little extra time in the kitchen with Claire, discussing the week's harvest or new varieties he was growing. I thought nothing of it. This was business. This was Claire being the passionate chef I'd fallen in love with. I was so goddamn naive. The first hint came from Miguel, our sous chef, a quiet guy, reliable, always early for his shifts. "Boss," he'd said one evening as we were closing up, his eyes focused on the cutting board he was sanitizing. "You should come in early tomorrow. Delivery day." I remember feeling confused. Something wrong with the produce? Miguel just shook his head. "Just come early, before Claire gets here." But I didn't. I trusted my wife. I dismissed Miguel's comment as some kitchen politics I didn't understand. Besides, we had a meeting with the bank that morning about expanding our line of credit. The business was growing. We needed more capital. What I didn't know was that something else was growing too. The bank meeting went well. We qualified for the expanded credit line, another $50,000 to upgrade the kitchen equipment, redo the patio seating, maybe finally fix that walk-in cooler properly. I was ecstatic, called Claire immediately, but she didn't pick up, probably busy prepping for lunch service. I decided to surprise her with the good news. Stopped by that bakery she loved, picked up those chocolate croissants she could never resist, and headed to the restaurant 2 hours before opening. The delivery truck was there. parked at our back entrance. Not unusual for a Friday. I nodded to myself, pleased with Jason's reliability, if nothing else. The kitchen was quiet when I entered through the back door, too quiet for prep time. Claire's office door was closed, which was strange. She never worked in there during morning prep. Her office was the line, tasting sauces, instructing the prep cooks, always in motion. I almost knocked. Something stopped me. Instead, I headed to the walk-in cooler to put away some of the fresh herbs I'd picked up from the market on my way. Special garnishes Claire had requested for the weekend special. And there they were. My wife, her chef's coat unbuttoned, her back against the metal shelving unit we'd installed together, and Jason, the cucumber whisperer, as the staff had jokingly nicknamed him, his hands where only mine should ever have been, his mouth on hers. They didn't hear me open the door. The cooler's fan masked the sound. I stood there for what felt like eternity, but was probably only 5 seconds. A bundle of thyme and mint clutched in my frozen fingers. Then I let the door slam shut. What followed was predictable, I suppose, Claire's tearful explanations. It had just happened. She'd been under so much pressure. She still loved me, but there's always a but. Jason skulked out the back delivery entrance. No eye contact, no apologies. Just the squeal of his truck tires on wet pavement as he fled the scene. The staff pretended not to notice when I emerged from Claire's office an hour later, eyes raw, hands shaking so badly I couldn't even tie my apron. Miguel just silently handed me a shot of whiskey, nodded once, and went back to julienning carrots. That night after service, after everyone had gone home, Claire and I had the talk, the one with capital letters, the one that either ends with broken dishes and slammed doors, or quiet tears and the hollow agreement to try again. We chose the third option, the one where I calmly asked her what she wanted. "I don't know, Danny," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the condensation rings her wineglass left on our shared desk. "I'm confused. About the restaurant? Or about us? Both, maybe." Her voice was small. "Jason wants me to. He's asked me to consider joining him, professionally." I felt the floor drop out from under me. Professionally. He wants to start a small line of prepared foods. Farm-branded. My recipes. His produce. And personally? The question burned coming out. Her silence was answer enough. "I won't tell you I was noble. I wasn't. I raged. I pleaded. I made promises we both knew I couldn't keep." But Claire had already made her decision. It was in her eyes, that distant look she got when she'd already plotted out a new recipe and was just going through the motions of experimentation. I was already a discarded draft. She'd moved on to the next creation. "I need some time," she finally said, "to figure things out." I gave her time, 2 days, during which I smiled at customers, expedited orders, counted register totals, and plotted. Because while Claire knew food, I knew business, and I knew something she'd forgotten. She might have been the creative genius behind our menu, but I was the one who had set up our LLC. I was the one who had signed the lease, maintained the licenses, established the banking relationships, and most importantly, I was the one who had insisted on certain clauses in our partnership agreement. Clauses she'd brushed off as unnecessary formalities and signed without reading. Until on the third day, when Claire announced she needed a break and would be spending the week at her sister's while she sorted things out, I simply nodded and helped her pack. As soon as her car disappeared around the corner, I made 3 phone calls, one to our lawyer, one to our landlord, and one to Rex Farmer, owner of Sunrise Organics, Green Valley's main competitor. By the time Claire returned, tanned and oddly cheerful after her sister's place, which Instagram revealed was actually Jason's farmhouse, based on the distinctive weathered red barn visible in her self-care retreat photos, I had already executed every step of my plan. "We need to talk," she said, settling into her office chair. That practiced look of regretful determination on her face. "Yes, we do," I agreed calmly. "I've made some changes while you were gone." She blinked, thrown off script. "Changes?" I slid a folder across the desk, Inside was a complete rebranding package for the restaurant. New name, Winter's Table. New logo, new menu concepts. "What is this?" she asked, confusion clouding her features. "Our restaurant's future," I replied. "Or rather, my restaurant's future." "Danny, what are you talking about? We need to discuss our relationship before we make any business decisions." That's when I placed the second folder in front of her. This one contained the formal dissolution of our business partnership, the transfer of her shares to me, as per the buyout clause she'd never bothered to read, and the amended lease agreement showing only my name. "There's no our anymore, Claire. Not personally, and as of yesterday, not professionally either." The color drained from her face as she flipped through the documents. "You can't do this. This is my restaurant too. My recipes, my vision." "Your recipes are works made for hire under our operating agreement. Your vision," I gestured around the room, "is now just a memory. But don't worry, I'll credit you appropriately in the Our Story section of the new website." "I'll fight this," she threatened, voice trembling. "I'll get a lawyer." "By all means," I said, standing up. "The contact information for my attorney's in the packet. He's expecting your call. Oh, and you might want to have that conversation with Jason before you proceed. Ask him about his meeting with the health department inspector yesterday." Her eyes widened. "What did you do?" "Nothing illegal," I assured her. "Just an anonymous tip about certain organic certification irregularities at Green Valley. Apparently some of those premium heirloom tomatoes have been sourced from Mexico and repackaged as local." The audit was illuminating. Claire's mouth opened and closed silently. She knew as well as I did what that meant for Jason's business, for his reputation, for all those high-end restaurant contracts, including the side business he'd been planning with my wife. "You destroyed him," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, Claire. He did that himself. I just made a phone call." And that was the moment she realized she'd underestimated me. All those years together, she'd seen me as the steady one, the safe choice, the business mind who enabled her culinary genius, not the man who would dismantle everything she'd built in the span of a week. "Your personal belongings are packed in the storeroom," I said quietly. "Miguel can help you load them into your car." As if summoned, Miguel appeared in the doorway. Behind him stood Ava, our new head chef, poached from that French bistro across town that Claire had always envied. "Who's this?" Claire demanded. "Ava Renault," I replied. "She starts today. Her bourguignon is extraordinary." Claire stared at me, something like respect mingling with the anger in her eyes. "I didn't think you had this in you, Danny." "That was your first mistake," I said simply, "one of many." She left an hour later, the back of her car filled with her knife kit, chef coats, and the special copper pans her grandmother had given her. As she pulled away, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just emptiness where the rage had been. That night I sat alone in the darkened restaurant, nursing a glass of the overpriced Barolo we'd added to the wine list, because Claire insisted it perfectly complemented her ossobuco. Tomorrow that would be gone too. Everything changed. A complete rebirth. My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "We need to talk. This isn't over." I didn't bother responding. He was right, it wasn't over. The health department investigation was just beginning. His farm would survive, probably, but his reputation had taken a critical hit. No more premium contracts, no more special relationships with high-end restaurants. Back to farmers markets and CSA boxes. Another text came through, this time from Claire. "You'll regret this. Nobody wants to eat at a restaurant with your name on it." That one made me smile. She still didn't get it. Winter's Table wasn't about me. It was about the food, the experience, the story. And now it would be a better story. The chef who rebuilt after personal tragedy. People love a Phoenix narrative. I finished my wine and walked through the dining room, running my fingers along the tops of chairs, straightening table settings that didn't need straightening. Tomorrow the sign painters would come. The week after, the photographer for the new website. In a month, we'd host a grand reopening. And Claire? She'd watch from the sidelines as her confusion cost her everything she'd worked for. The restaurant business is brutal. But divorce can be even more so when you plan it right. True to my prediction, Winter's Table opened exactly 4 weeks after Claire's departure. The rebrand was a hit rustic American cuisine with global influences, emphasizing local ingredients, now sourced from multiple farms, including Sunrise Organics, whose owner Rex was more than happy to step into the gap left by Green Valley's fall from grace. Ava, it turned out, was not just an extraordinary chef, but a natural leader in the kitchen. The staff respected her immediately, and the new menus she and I developed together drew praise from critics and customers alike. The Portland Weekly, which had once lauded Claire's beet salad, now declared Ava's charred octopus with smoked paprika aioli, a bold statement from a restaurant embracing reinvention. We were booked solid for the first 3 months. I'd like to say it was all strategic genius on my part, but the truth is, people love drama. News of our situation had spread through Portland's tight-knit culinary community like wildfire. Everyone wanted to see what Daniel Winters would do without Claire, whether I'd crash and burn or rise from the ashes. The fact that my face was now on the logo, on the website, on the goddamn napkins, it was all part of the story. The man who'd been betrayed but refused to be broken. Portland ate it up, literally. I threw myself into work with a single-mindedness that bordered on obsession. 70, 80 hours a week. I learned every station in the kitchen, mastered dishes I'd only previously admired from the past. I wanted to understand every aspect of what made Winter's Table work, what had made Herb Vine successful before it. 6 months in, Food Wine called requesting an interview. They were doing a feature on restaurant rebrands and transformations. The writer, a woman named Sophia with sharp eyes and sharper questions, sat across from me in the dining room before service, recorder between us. "So," she said, "tell me about the name change. Why Winter's Table?" I gave her the public version. "My last name is Winters. I wanted something personal, something that reflected the intimate dining experience we're trying to create. Like you're a guest at my home." She nodded, making notes. "And the previous name? Herb Vine? Who came up with that?" "My ex-wife and I developed that concept together." "Claire Sullivan," she said. Not a question. She'd done her research. "She's working with Green Valley Organics now, correct? On their prepared foods line?" I kept my face neutral. "I believe so, yes." "Which is interesting," Sophia continued, "considering the difficulties Green Valley has faced recently with their organic certification. Some might call the timing unfortunate." I met her gaze steadily. "The restaurant industry is small. Connections and complications are inevitable." "Indeed." She tapped her pen against her notepad. "Your ex-wife declined to be interviewed for this piece." "I'm not surprised." She did, however, send a statement. Sophia glanced down at her notes. She said, and I quote, "Daniel is an excellent businessman. What he lacks in creativity, he makes up for in calculation." I couldn't help but laugh. She's not wrong. Sophia looked up, something like approval in her expression. "Most people would take that as an insult." "Most people undervalue calculation," I replied. "In cooking, precision matters as much as creativity. You can have the most innovative flavor combination in the world, but if your ratios are wrong, if your timing is off, it fails." "And your timing was perfect," she observed. I didn't answer directly. "Would you like to see the kitchen before dinner service begins? Ava is preparing a special tasting menu for you." The article came out 3 weeks later. The headline, "Winter's Calculation: How Betrayal Launched Portland's Hottest Restaurant Rebirth." It was fair, balanced, and absolutely devastating to Claire and Jason. Sophia had managed to uncover details about the Green Valley certification scandal that even I hadn't known. Apparently, the organic, local vegetables had been coming from conventional farms as far away as California for nearly a year. The day the article was published, our reservation list exploded. The website crashed briefly from traffic. I received 47 emails from old culinary school classmates, former colleagues, even Claire's cousin, who had always liked me better apparently, and one text message from a number I hadn't deleted but hadn't used in months. "Is this what you wanted? To humiliate me completely?" I didn't respond. There was nothing to say, This wasn't about humiliation. It was about survival, about taking what was rightfully mine, about building something that couldn't be taken away again. 1 year after the split, Winter's Table received its first Michelin star. The ceremony was in New York, and I flew out with Ava and Miguel, all of us uncomfortable in formal wear, clutching champagne flutes and making small talk with the culinary elite. As we posed for photos, Michelin plaque in hand, I caught sight of a familiar face across the room, Claire. She was standing next to a tall man in an expensive suit, not Jason, someone new. Her hair was different, shorter, and she had lost weight. When our eyes met, she lifted her glass slightly, a gesture somewhere between acknowledgement and resignation. Later, as I headed to the restroom, she intercepted me in the hallway. "Congratulations," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "A Michelin star. That's quite an achievement." "Thank you," I replied, equally measured. "Ava is incredibly talented." "Yes, I've heard." Claire glanced down at her hands, twisting the stem of her empty glass. "The Green Valley line didn't work out." "I know." She looked up sharply. "Of course you do." "It was in the Portland Business Journal 3 months ago," I said calmly. "I do read the local news, Claire." "Right." She let out a small, bitter laugh. "Always thorough." An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. A year ago, I would have filled it, would have tried to ease her discomfort. Now I just waited. "Jason and I," she finally continued, "that ended. Rather spectacularly." "I'm sorry to hear that." "I wasn't." "Are you?" she challenged, a flash of the old Claire breaking through. "After what you did to his business?" "I didn't do anything to his business that he hadn't already done," I corrected her. "The health department doesn't investigate baseless claims." She conceded this with a tilt of her head. "Fair enough. Still, you must have taken some satisfaction." I considered this. Had I? In the immediate aftermath, perhaps. But that feeling had faded quickly, replaced by the all-consuming focus on Winter's Table. "It stopped mattering," I admitted. "At some point, revenge becomes just another task on your to-do list. Then you check it off and move on." Claire studied my face as if seeing it clearly for the first time. "You've changed, Danny." "Yes. I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "Not just for Jason, for underestimating you, for thinking you needed me more than I needed you." It was the apology I'd once desperately wanted. Now it felt like a letter delivered to an old address, forwarded again and again until it finally reached me, worn and irrelevant. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "I should get back to my team." She nodded, then reached out impulsively, her fingers brushing my sleeve. "The man I'm with tonight, Edward, he's an investor. He's looking at restaurant concepts in Chicago. There might be an opportunity if you're ever interested in expanding." I gently moved back, breaking the contact. "I'm good where I am, but thank you." As I turned to leave, she called after me. "The star. You deserve it, Danny. I always knew you had it in you." I paused, looked back at her, one last time. "No, Claire, you didn't. That's why we're here." 2 years after the split, Winter's Table had become a Portland institution. We'd expanded into the vacant space next door, doubling our seating capacity, added a private dining room, launched a small line of retail products, spice blends, infused oils, specialty vinegars sold in high-end grocery stores throughout the Pacific Northwest. I'd started dating again cautiously, a wine distributor named Elise, who understood the insane hours and the emotional commitment the restaurant demanded, who didn't feel threatened when I sometimes slept on the office couch rather than drive home after a 16-hour day. Life had found a new rhythm. Not perfect, but real, earned. And then Jason showed up. It was a Tuesday evening, halfway through dinner service. I was expediting, calling orders, the controlled chaos of a busy kitchen flowing around me, when Miguel appeared at my side. "Boss," he said quietly, "there's someone asking for you out front." "Tell them I'll come by their table after service," I replied, garnishing a plate of scallops. "It's not a customer," Miguel said, his expression grim. "It's him." I didn't need to ask who him was. I wiped my hands, told the sous chef to take over the pass, and made my way through the dining room. Jason stood just inside the entrance, hat in hands, looking thinner and more weathered than I remembered. The confident farmer's swagger was gone, replaced by something hunched and hesitant. "Mr. Winters," he began formally, "could I have a moment of your time?" I gestured to the bar. 5 minutes. We sat at the far end, away from customers. I signaled the bartender for 2 whiskeys, then turned to face the man who had helped destroy my marriage. "What can I do for you, Mr. Reeves?" He flinched slightly at the formality. "I wanted to apologize. In person, man to man." "Okay." I took a sip of whiskey. "Consider it done." Jason blinked, thrown off balance. "Just like that? Just like that? Is there something else?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration. "I guess I expected, I don't know, more resistance? Anger? Would that make you feel better?" I asked. "If I was still angry?" "No, of course not." He took a large swallow of his drink. "Look, I fucked up. With Claire, with the certification, with everything. I lost my farm. Did you know that?" I nodded. I'd heard. Green Valley had been sold at auction 6 months earlier after the bank foreclosed. "I'm working as a field supervisor for AgriCorp now," he continued, a twisted smile on his face. "Corporate farming. Everything I used to rail against." "Life is full of ironies," I observed neutrally. "Yeah." He stared into his glass. "Claire said you'd be like this. Cold. Calculated. Claire talks about me often, does she?" He laughed humorlessly. "No, haven't spoken to her in over a year. She moved to Chicago, I heard, with some finance guy. Edward, the investor. So she'd gone with him after all." "Why are you really here, Jason?" I asked directly. "It's not for absolution." He met my eyes then, and I saw the desperation there. "I want to start over. A small farm, doing it right this time. No shortcuts, no lies. But I need capital." "Ah, now it made sense. And you thought what? That I'd invest in your redemption story?" "Not invest," he clarified quickly. "I thought, maybe you need a dedicated supplier, someone who knows what Winter's Table needs, who could grow specifically for you. Exclusive relationship." The audacity was almost admirable. Almost. "Let me understand," I said slowly. "You want me to fund your new farm through a supply contract, after you lied about your products, slept with my wife, and tried to steal my business." Put like that, it did sound absurd. Jason had the grace to look embarrassed. "When you say it that way, there's no other way to say it." I finished my whiskey and set the glass down with finality. "The answer is no," he nodded, shoulders slumping further. I figured. Had to try, though. As he stood to leave, I found myself asking, "Why did you do it?" Not the organic fraud, I understand business pressures, but Claire, the affair. You had to know it would all come crashing down eventually. Jason paused, his expression complex. "She made me feel important, like I wasn't just another supplier, like my work mattered artistically." He shrugged awkwardly. "Stupid, right? Getting my head turned by a chef who appreciated my vegetables. It wasn't stupid. It was exactly Claire's talent making people feel extraordinary, essential to her vision. She'd done the same to me for years." "Good luck with your next venture, Mr. Reeves," I said, not unkindly. "I hope you find what you're looking for." After he left, I returned to the kitchen, to the familiar chaos and heat and purpose, to the life I'd rebuilt from the ruins of betrayal. That night after service, as I sat in my office reviewing the day's numbers, I thought about Jason's visit, about Claire in Chicago, about the strange, circular nature of consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise. "Still at the restaurant? I made pasta." I smiled, shut down my computer, and turned off the office light. Some lessons you learn the hard way, and some rewards come only after you've lost everything you thought you wanted. As I locked the restaurant door behind me, I glanced up at the sign, Winter's Table, illuminated against the night sky. Not a compromise, not a partnership. Mine, hard-earned and unassailable. The urban vine had withered, but winter, it turned out, had its own kind of beauty. If you've ever had your trust broken, Your dreams shattered, or your heart stomped on by someone you thought was in your corner? Drop a comment below. How did you rebuild? What unexpected strength did you find in yourself after the betrayal? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of resilience, revenge, and reinvention. Sometimes the best dish is served cold.